You need to unmute.
Hi.
I can see you. Hi.
Cool.
So we're live. We're recording. I got the little red button, and I'm gonna just do a little preamble here for everybody who may not know who you are, which I would find shocking, but here we are. This Genius Call, thanks to Janet, first of all, for doing so much hustling for Genius Calls behind the scenes. We all really appreciate the work she's doing there, and she was very much a main facilitator here for us to get together. And thank you for the time today. I know you're super busy with BFF, and we're going to get all into that. But for those who don't know, we are talking with Jaime Schmidt today. Jaime is the founder of the CPG brand Schmidt's Naturals, which she scaled from her kitchen to a plus $100 million acquisition by Unilever. She's also the co-founder of Color Capital and Club CPG. But most of the time today, she spends on building BFF, which we'll talk a lot about today as well, which is a brand that helps women and non-binary people get educated and connect in Web3. I had the tremendously good fortune of having been exposed to Club CPG through a number of folks in SF. And that tale kind of brings us here, or brings me here, to talk to Jaime. And I want to just preamble it with one small caveat. So a little story to get us going. And I don't know if I lost Jaime, but it seems like she's still there. But the 12 Days of CPG is where I got my my token. And I've said this a whole bunch before, but I was so emotional and I was so thankful that I got it. And it really, I dove in. I had gone through the list of folks that Jaime and Chris had assembled for CPG, and I was overwhelmed and impressed with everybody that was there, because it was all these hardcore builders and people who had a lot of success in their career already, things that I aspire to do. And then immediately there was a Secret Santa that went out. And I'm like, okay, I can kind of hide in this group. Maybe I'll get somebody who's not that great, and I can kind of figure out how to do this Web3 Secret Santa. And of course I landed Chris. And I was like, oh man, how am I going to figure out what to get Chris, who seemingly is rocking his punk and is just gobbling up all sorts of fun alpha all over the place. And so in my deep dive of all right, how do I figure out how Chris and Jaime are, I pulled down Supermaker and I read it in a day. And it just was this wonderful exposition of the journey that you've had. And so for today, I kind of wanted to revisit a little bit of Supermaker and give a plug for it, because I think it's a really handy, practical, insightful, and inspiring book. And also I think because of the timing of it, there's this angle of your philosophies and how you present yourself on Twitter are so strong, and exactly how you believe in the world and how you want to move through it. And maybe that wasn't always the case, but it feels that way from us that are watching. And how has Web3 and that journey juxtaposed against Supermaker kind of brought it there? So I'm going to make it easy. I'm just going to go back through time and go where'd you start with your brand? And I think then periodically just ask some questions about is it the same or different for Web3? I've already spoken for 4 minutes and I'm uncomfortable doing that. So I want to turn it over to you and give anything that I've missed. But welcome, and thank you so much for putting up with my preamble. How are you?
Hi, Mikey. Thanks for the nice intro. I appreciate your compliment about how I seemed like I know how to move through the world, because I don't know that that's true. I've had some major accomplishments, yes, but I think, I'm still learning every day and changing every day. And so it's good from the outside that, I'm presenting with such confidence and having an impact. So thank you.
100%. So in Supermaker, you start with where you started, which is your kitchen back in Portland. And I think again, I'm going to play this nobody knows who you are, and that you're going to go through this from the beginning. And so tell us about how that started and where you launched it. I'm going to try and stick to the 25 minutes and then open it up for folks, but I think we can
Cool.
kind of amble through this.
Yeah. I'll dumb down some of my answer, not dumb down, but shorten, I guess, against some of my more lengthier. Generally, I can ramble. But yeah, started in Portland back in 2010. I had been on this quest for several years, to find fulfillment in my work. I think a lot of people here can probably relate to that. You find yourself on this career path. You start second guessing yourself and thinking, is this the best use of my skills? Do I enjoy this? Do I want to keep going on this, trajectory? And it got, so extreme for me that I decided that I wasn't going to settle. And so I didn't know what that looked like. I knew I had to get my hands dirty to figure it out. And so I tried, several things. I had moved cross country from Michigan to Portland, and Portland was, the most creative city in the country. And I thought, if I'm going to find myself, this is where it's going to happen. So everybody there was like a maker, an artist, a musician. And I, for one, felt like kind of a big nerd. And I was like, what can I do that's cool? Like, how do I fit into this scene? But also, like, what can I do that's fulfilling, and what can I do that I'm actually good at? And so I tried lots of stuff, settled on making personal care products, and it worked out beautifully because I was pregnant at the time. I was paying closer attention, to the products I was using on my skin. So everything was sort of just aligned. So started making things, they were working. I had this deodorant that was like working amazingly well. I had been using different natural deodorants. A lot of them fell short for me. And so I thought, you know what, if this works for me, it's going to work for other people. And so I went out to the farmers markets, still sort of naive to what was in front of me with the business, and set up shop every weekend, different markets. Some were incredibly slow, some were busier, but it was the perfect chance to meet customers, to learn how to be a business person, and truly recognize, the opportunity in what I was doing. So I decided to go all in, named it after myself because I didn't know what else to call it. It was supposed to be a temporary name, but it ended up sticking with me for the long term. And then from there, just started taking the business very seriously, recognizing, what I could do in terms of wholesale and distribution. So fast forward 7 years later, and as you mentioned, Mikey, I sold the business to Unilever in an acquisition. Never could have imagined it from day one, standing out there at the market. And so, so much happened in those years. And I ended up building out our manufacturing facility, zero experience doing that, but figured out what that meant, scaling from my stovetop to a full-fledged, manufacturing facility with about 150 employees working over 2 shifts. And so, today, like, I want my story to be that inspiration for people who think like, I could never figure this out. Like, I'm not that person, but you are. Like, everybody has that potential. And I'm the perfect example of that because, if you'd asked me in my, younger years, what you want to be when you grow up, I wouldn't have said, running a deodorant factory, because there's no way in hell I could figure that out, but I did. And here we are, and life has changed a lot. And it's great to be here with kind of Club CPG, sharing the story and hopefully inspiring some people.
Oh, 100%. I want to rewind a little bit to the Portland and the makerspace. I think there's like some interesting historical things that I think you and Chris kind of hit in terms of nascency of the parallels in Web2 and how your brand started to evolve there.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to understand how you feel that Portland vibe of meeting all of these amazing artists, creators, and makers. How does that parallel to how you're experiencing Web3 right now? Because what comes to mind is like this global environment we have for Web3, but there are these amazing makers, and some of them are carryovers and artists as well. Like, what are you seeing in Web3 that reminds you of that origin story in Portland?
Yeah, I love that. I would say there's no right way to do things, or there's no one way to do things, and it's so personal. These NFT projects are just a beautiful example of that, right? A lot of us start as artists in this space, zero business experience, not knowing, what the hell we're doing, but just like following our intuition and what resonates with us on a personal level, and just trusting that is so, so key. And that's what got me ahead in Web2, building my brand, was that, I didn't obsess over what others were doing. I didn't know enough about what other people were doing. And that naivety was actually a blessing for me. And so I see that definitely resonating with a lot of the Web3 companies today too. And, we're all running businesses in Web3. And of course, once you get to a certain point, like, you have to really, kick it into gear and professionalize things and standardize things. But in those earliest days of scheming, your concept, I think it's so important just to let your mind go wild and just to explore that side of yourself. And Yeah, no playbooks. That's what I like about Web3 right now is like there's literally like no playbooks that exist. Web2, it's like, oh, you can go to the bookstore and there's like the shelves are full of like how to build your business, how to build a brand, how to market. And now like with Web3, it's like we're just starting to build those playbooks. So we are the ones writing them, which is awesome.
And for BFF, it's been just awe-inspiring to watch the partnerships coming out of it. I mean, the team that you've assembled there, I see a bunch of folks here that are there. The quality of that team, it's just really inspiring to watch it. In your journey, we have, you really like did a very fast forward from the inception of Schmidt's to your exit and then post. You have a couple of points in Supermaker about make it yours is like one big part of it, which I think is what we're sort of covering now, and then make it exceptional in this scale up. And right now you're in the throes of that scale up for BFF. What are some of the parallels that in that phase of Schmidt's as you were making things grow and what you're seeing now in BFF? Are there parallels and what's kind of different?
Yeah, there's certainly a turning point for any business, whether it's Web2, Web3, where you start to look at the business from a different lens, right? You've got your customers, you have your community, you have this mission that you've set out to accomplish. But like as you get bigger and as more people are invested, whether it's a customer or somebody in your community, there's more at stake, right? And so the things, as I mentioned earlier, like have to become a little more professionalized, right, or standardized, and like keeping the beauty of I guess building without looking too far ahead. Like that's always been key to me, is like I never look too far ahead, and I think that's what got me ahead. So it's balancing that with also like having systems and having goals and things that you're working towards. And so there's definitely that crossover, whether building a Web2 or a Web3 business. I also think about leadership and just team management, right? Like that's going to apply no matter what type of business you're building and what web. You have to be a leader who inspires the team and to deliver and makes it clear what those deliverables are. And so, but there's different rules, right? Like hours are less structured. You're not showing up to make deodorant in the factory from 9 to 5. It's more like, hey, these are the goals, and like work with your schedule to get us there. And I think one thing that gets overlooked in the beginning for some Web3 brands, I think, is just the significance and the importance of budget. I think a lot of us don't know how to manage budgets, and I was guilty of that in my first business. It took some getting used to and some scary moments and scrambling to get things in order. But that is so key for any business now. These Web3 companies, especially like right now during the bear market, like what does it mean to have a budget? What does it mean to assess your spend and understand what things are delivering and what things you might need to eliminate? And so that's really hard, but also incredibly important. And I think that's going to be one of the differentiators for the brands that do survive this time.
It's fascinating to see this front-loaded infusion of capital and the brands that really have, and the teams that know how to do this, how much they're racing ahead of teams that are figuring it out. Not that there's a right way, like you had mentioned. Mm-hmm. I think with my BFF, going back to Supermaker, you make 2 points about making an impact and making it last. And I just want to say, like, for my BFF, for me, the value set that was put forward was magnetic and has a very big vision and is one that is just doing a lot of good in the world. And so you deserve more than a thank you. You deserve, like, that team, everyone is, when you won at NFT NYC, it was like, I was talking to Christine, I was like, this is a no-brainer for you guys to win. And I'm, that best onboarding, it's doing a lot of great work, not just for Web3, but for like the whole community is benefiting from it. When you went into starting My BFF and assembling this vision, what was top of mind for setting that foundation for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went in, I had a lot of confidence because I had a business partner who had also built some successful brands in her past, and just in our conversations, I just knew we were on the same page. We wanted the same thing. We didn't, it wasn't entirely clear on how we were going to get there, but we knew what we wanted and that we could get there. We started with our event in January on YouTube. We had 5,000 people show up to learn about the basics of Web3 and NFTs. Everybody that came got their first, they got an airdropped BFF friendship bracelet that, lives in all their wallets today. And for many, that was their very first NFT, their first exposure to Web3. And so that was just an awesome experience to help people, just understand what it all was and what the opportunity was. And, as that landscape changes and, as we evolve as a brand, yes, we won this award recently for best onboarding experience for new users. And, we weren't surprised. We were honored and we were like, just ecstatic. We were like, hell yeah, we deserve that. And, but now it's, what's next? Like we won't be the onboarding brand forever. That'll be a big part of who we are, but then we have to think bigger picture, like what is BFF really after? Like what more can we deliver? Okay, we've onboarded this huge group of people who are really eager to explore new opportunities in Web3, but now, like, what does that mean for us as a brand? And so we're doing a lot of strategizing and soul searching and sort of putting things into place to so that we can best articulate phase 2 of BFF.
It's wonderful. And yes, like now you've evolved. I feel like there's this moment that you're coming at, and you sort of just alluded to it. Like there's a lot of strategizing going on, and you've sort of talked about it on Twitter. And I hope to kind of gain some insights from you. There was this point at Schmidt's where you had a number of SKUs and a number of products, and you and Chris were debating like, no, we're going to skinny it down to one. And it was a big decision, and it was one that was not easy nor like apparent, I think, at the time. And in hindsight, like, was great. Where do you see Web3 in terms of BFF and in general, like needing to focus that one SKU going forward? And maybe not just for BFF, but like in Web3, what's your opinion on how we have like this very broad umbrella of Web3, and now we've had this kind of reckoning of some things getting shaken? Like, where do you think it needs to settle out and like reducing the number of SKUs?
Yeah, I like that parallel. I hadn't thought about that, but it's so true. You can't be everything to everybody. And I think as a new brand, sometimes you try to be because you want to put your eggs in all the baskets and see what sticks. And I think that's important. But once you get to a certain point, you figure out your strength and who your niche, customer or community member is. And then you really have to own that, and you have to figure out and be able to explain how it is different and how it's unique and how you're going to continue to expand on that. That's critical for so many brands right now. Club CPG is a great example too, right? Like we're not going to try to be everything to everybody, and we never, claim to be, but now more than ever, it's like, how do we articulate that specialty? How are we different? And I think it's hard for founders to figure it out. And especially as there's more and more brands and more communities popping up all over the place, it's hard to figure out that like special sauce that you have. And, for us, at BFF, we're real confident in what that is, but it's going to be important for us to be able to grow on how we articulate that. Right. And so we actually have some fun announcements coming in the next month or so on, what that looks like for us.
Fantastic. I'm going to take this moment. We're about 10 minutes from when we had decided we're going to pull over a bunch of questions. So if folks have both ones they want to ask live and also ones they want to throw in the chat, if they happen to be in a place where they can't speak, please start getting those queued up into the chat right now. And we're going to answer as many as we can in those 30 minutes. I am super excited because we get like some really great questions that come in. And I think that this is going to be just really insightful. And I really appreciate that we're kind of freewheeling a bit on this. I want to turn the attention slightly more now to Club CPG and how Genesis kind of started and how the gates have opened there. When you started CPG, and I'm just going to go from my own recollection, like you had the site and you had given out these Genesis mentor passes, and then those mentors were then given an extra pass, and those were redeemed, and you built this kind of close-knit society of folks that there's like some people that are in that group that when you talk to them, they're like, I'm never getting rid of this NFT. I don't care what it's worth. And that's what it's morphed into. Talk a little bit about your intentions of starting it, and maybe there's some Color Capital background in here as well. Like, what were you aiming for with that mentor pass and that collection from your perspective? Like, I think we know what Chris wanted. I want to hear it more
Yeah.
from you.
Yeah. Well, Club CPG dates back before the crypto packaged goods NFT collection launched. And I will give a little more history on kind of like how color started and where Club CPG originated. So after we sold Schmidt's Naturals in 2017, Chris and I, just for clarity, Chris was there alongside me, helping me build Schmidt's. And so together, we had gained this incredible wealth of knowledge on what it takes to scale a business. And so we thought, okay, we have these resources, financially, of course, but then also we have this expertise and this experience that is pretty unique in the industry. There aren't a lot of CPG brands who go through an acquisition and then, kind of hang around to help others do the same. A lot of people take off or retire, go missing, whatever it might be. We wanted to do more. So we started our fund, Color Capital, and the intention there was to invest in other CPG brands, and we got excited and made some early investments there. The fund has evolved a bit to include some Web3, of course. So that's been interesting and really fun to operate together. It's just the two of us. We have no LPs, so we can make our funding decisions just together. And what resonates and where we think the best opportunities are and who we can best support. And then Club CPG, so that really started on Clubhouse. It was around the earliest days of COVID. Everybody was gathering to hang out on Clubhouse, and we were hosting conversations around brand building, marketing, acquisitions, whatever it might be. And it started to grow this community that was really excited to engage in these talks, and they became more regular. And then we decided to brand it Club CPG. And so we did that for a bit, several months, and during the height of Clubhouse, and then, things there shifted, of course. So we started to explore opportunity on Discord, and then taking things a little bit more to Twitter. And that community followed us, right? So we had this just really devoted group of, whether they were thought leaders or people who were actively building in the earliest stages, just this group of people who are really excited about CPG. And then we saw the opportunity for the NFT collection, right? So this was mid 2021, where everybody was starting to think about NFTs and how they could launch their own collections. And for us, it was really obvious. We wanted to bring together people at that intersection of consumer and Web3, because it didn't exist, and there was so much opportunity at that intersection, right, in terms of acquiring new customers, new ways of marketing your business, and just so much potential. But no one really knew the extent of that potential. So we thought, let's get everybody together and figure it out as a group, as a community. So you explained the mechanics of it, how we had given some passes to mentors, and then the mentors gave to their mentees, and then we all came together on Telegram. There was, so much enthusiasm, so much hype, and just so much like naivety and vulnerability in the group in those earliest days, where we were just like talking about things we were excited about and sharing resources. And then it became a little, some of the conversations became more technical, and we built out new channels for different interests. And it's a very active community still today. And then we saw the opportunity to expand that through Pop. And that's, when Pop launched, we thought, all right, this is what we've built with the Genesis collection is incredible. Like, how do we bring that value to more people? So that's when Pop came into the picture. And, Chris, of course, has been leading that. Everybody knows Chris at the forefront of the brand. And together we had schemed a lot of ideas. Still every day we go on walks together and talk, about what it means and what we can do now and into the future. And so it's just awesome, and just wild to look back on sort of the journey of what got us here.
I think the piece for me, and it's beautiful how you've laid it out from that progression. The thing that keeps coming back into my mind, and the thing that I keep experiencing firsthand, is that your intentions are and have been to pay it forward through the community. And I think when you come into Genesis and you ask anybody for help, like I did, like I flat out of the gate, I was like, hey, I need some help with, figuring out some logistics on my side, and people answered. And I think like it doesn't take a lot to help other people, and you have continually set that as the culture. And I think what I would love to have people hear from me and from, you're saying it, I'm just trying to underscore it, is that that's really like the foundation of Pop, is that we're all building here. If you got into Pop and you're just going to sit on it, cool. But if you actually take the time to come in with that same spirit that Club CPG was founded on, you can get way more out of it than you think you can just by asking questions, being vulnerable, like you just stated, and
Mhm.
also helping somebody else out. It goes so far to just pick up somebody's question and be like, yeah, I can help you here. And that bond, which spans through the internet, has really been like your track record of like from Color Capital all the way through.
Yeah.
What what is what's your thoughts on how Web3 has a lot of pseudonymity, and then we have this very authentic community. And having a pseudonym does not mean that you're not authentic. But
Mhm.
what do you think is the conditions that set Web3 to be what it is in this time where like scams are rampant, but now we've got like this reckoning? How do you set that environment on a daily basis for BFF and for CPG for that authenticity? Because you come across, and I've met you in person, I've talked to you on the phone a whole bunch, like you are the same person. Like this is not an act. And I think that's a really important part of our Web3 experience is when you meet somebody, you're getting who you're actually talking with.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what's most important is that people show up how they want to show up, and that looks it's so different for everybody. Whether you are anonymous or you're fully exposed, like that's up to you. And I'm here to support all of it. And people have reasons for how they show up, right? And maybe it's certain points in their lives, maybe things change for them over time and whatever it might be. But I think back to the authenticity piece, I think that bringing that to your communities is what's going to help you grow as a person, right? Like just whether it is, you're fully doxxed or you are showing up more reserved, just showing up in an authentic way is going to help you grow and just leaning on each other and trusting one another. And I think, hopping between communities and see which one resonates. I'm totally proponent for exploring other communities. Yes, I think my communities are great, but I also think there's, maybe there's a better fit for somebody somewhere else. And I think we should all feel free to explore and support people on that search and on that journey. And just, it's just such a unique time that we're living through right now. And I think it's so great for like personal development and, along with professional development too. And so, where it's kudos for everybody, just for showing up and being part of CPG and a pop or BFF, whatever it is, like just kudos for trying it out.
Be yourself and be
Yeah.
authentic. Awesome. So we have about 2 minutes till the bottom half of the hour. Um, I ambled around and covered a lot of different ground. I want to give you 2 minutes to do whatever it is that you want that maybe we didn't cover or something that you had in mind before we got here. And while you're doing that, I'll have queued up. If folks are able to, who are listening, if you can raise your hand now, we'll get that queued up. There's a couple of them in the chat as well. And then we have them lined up. So for the next 2 minutes, like final words, what are some things that you really are feeling
Yeah.
strongly about and want to just share with the community?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think, I think back to like I guess the Schmidt story, and like there's so much that we had to, skip over, and thanks for shouting out my book. But I think, if there's some sort of key lessons there or takeaways that I think are relevant to, probably most of you who've shown up today, it's like, I mentioned, like, definitely don't be afraid to get your hands dirty, right? Like you have to know what you're good at and what you like. And being honest with yourself is the secret, right? Like we all convince ourselves that we're enjoying something or that like this is the path we're supposed to be on. And so I think just being real with yourself and refusing to settle is just so key, no matter what you're building or what you're going after. Listening, as if you're a leader, of a brand or a community, like listening to your customer, listening to your community, that sounds kind of cliche, but it's so key. I started my first business, no one knew who the hell I was. And so I leaned on my community to help, just to, I'm so thankful that they trusted me, right? Like with their product. And so that relationship is just so key as you're growing, no matter how big you get. Right. And maybe today more people do know who I am, but like, that does not take away from, how seriously I'm going to take their feedback and their input. And that's on the same token though, like you also get to a point where you have to be selective in the feedback that you take, right? Or you drive yourself crazy. And so one thing I always tell people is, look for patterns in the feedback that you're getting, right? If there's something that you're hearing consistently, like maybe there's something there that you should explore more. If it's a one-off, you listen and you think about if that resonates with you, but some things you just have to say no to, right? Because you can't do all of it. And so know what you stand for, what your values are on a personal level, on a professional level, and as a brand, and just and stick with that.
Wow. Yeah. It's fascinating. I'm going to go over and just react to that a little bit. The growth of like through the pandemic and having this really massive global kind of crisis hit everyone, I think has shaken a lot of people that had gotten into this grind to really take a step back and look at it. And I think you touched on this whole confidence in yourself to really look at like, I just actually don't enjoy this and I'm not going to do it anymore. And I do enjoy X and I'm going to do that is, I feel like something that has been cracked open and exposed for a lot of folks the past couple of years. And that just resonates with me so strongly because I've had to like, I'm a pleaser and I'll just like bop along and do things for people. And instead of being like, actually, I don't like doing this, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
So that's
you don't even know, like you're a pleaser to yourself sometimes too, right? And you're just like, I'm doing this because I'm supposed to, or like I was raised under this environment and this is like the expectations of maybe my parents had of me or whatever, or these are the things my friends are interested in and this is the path they're on. And so like it's so important just to step back and like check in and be like, is this really what you want? And I think it's one of the hardest things. But yeah, you're right, like this is a good time to do it. Like the bear market, like things are a little slower, we have more time on our hands, and maybe we're cutting back on these certain spends. That means we're in the house more, whatever it is. And so it's a good time to have those self-talks, I guess, and sort of insightful moments with yourself.
Sweet. Well, we're going to turn to the chat now. I can't guarantee that any of these are softballs, so okay. I won't. But yeah, so this one is from Michelle Laura, and her question is, would you have done anything differently with Schmidt's if you were building today, given what Web3 makes available or is available?
I would have been more public. Like I was so behind the scenes. I hardly put myself out there, on social. Like I didn't have a Twitter until I sold the business. I literally didn't have a Twitter till like months after I sold the business. And so like, if I had been nurturing that, like I think about the opportunities that I could have taken advantage of and the connections I could have made. And so I literally like built it kind of silently. Like not a lot of people knew like who I was and what I was doing. And, so that I think I would have probably done that differently, especially now, like, having the opportunities to connect in Web3 with, communities like CPG and Pop, and I would have taken advantage of that, right? Like jumped into a chat and asked questions and looked for advice and connected with people and helped others. And yeah.
Fantastic. So nobody has raised their hand, and I'm gonna try and get somebody to do that.
I had a question, but I didn't know how to raise my hand.
Okay, golly, go.
And then I just realized that I had a lot of powers that I could just unmute. But yeah, my question is first of all, thank you, Jamie, for this genius call. Big fan. My first question would be to talk about the post from, for example, Metaverse, and Mark Zuckerberg commented on it. So you know that you're already reaching out to. I saw it. It's huge. I love it. And so what are your plans moving forward to keep reaching out to people who are still stuck in Web3 to onboard them, and Web2 to onboard them from platforms like Instagram and stuff like that to Web3, for example?
Yeah. So what Gali was saying, so Metaverse posted on their Instagram because they had access to the beta program for NFTs on Instagram, and they shared a BFFU NFT, which was really cool. And Mark Zuckerberg commented on it, and so people were kind of excited about that. And so, but I loved it. Yes, it's great because it's bringing more awareness to people who don't yet know or feel confident exploring the space. We started on Instagram, right off the bat. BFF has always had this philosophy, like, let's try to meet people where they're at. So not forcing everybody onto Discord, not forcing everyone onto Twitter, but maybe it is the people on Instagram, or maybe it's SMS. We have a texting system where we send a lot of updates that way and have conversations with our community, and that works for so many people. We have a newsletter, which has needed some work. And so I'm really excited to share that we're launching a new one probably in the next 2 weeks or so that our editor-in-chief has taken ownership over. And that's going to be a really great way to tap into, new people who are curious and want to be inspired to have conversations around Web3 and know what's happening. So it's not a newsletter. It's going to be updates about the BFF community specifically. It's updates around like what is trending, what is happening, what people should know about. And we're doing it in a way that I think is going to be really accessible and digestible and, friendly to women and non-binary people or other people who just feel, left out of some of the, more mainstream kind of crypto culture. But that's always going to be at the heart of who we are, is onboarding more people and helping people understand the opportunities. So if that means Mark Zuckerberg commenting on posts, like, that's fantastic.
Well, thank you very much. That was an awesome answer. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kali. So up next, we have Andrea NYC. I believe you should have ability to ask a question. So fire away, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I actually had 2 questions, so I'm just scrolling back to the question that I think. Oh, okay. Thank you, Jamie, for your time. I wish we could have a few hours of you talking because it's always so inspirational. When you started BFF, like, what did your team look like? And kind of what I'm getting at is when someone starts a project, I realize things can be, every project or brand can be different, but are there key hires that you did? And like, what was your day-to-day role? And then as you've grown, how has your team evolved and your role?
Yeah, so when it started, it was me and Britt, my co-founder. Oh, excuse me. The two of us, planning out the bigger sort of strategy and digging into the day-to-day organization of like our launch event. That was the first public-facing thing we did, was the YouTube event. And then we had assembled, as many of you know, this team of founding BFFs, as we call them. And that's basically a group of influential women who jumped on to support the cause, right? And Britt and I, had some connections through like our prior businesses, and we started to share, our plans for BFF. And literally everyone we shared it with was like, I need to be involved in that. I want to help. Like, how can I help? And so we decided to assemble this team of founding BFFs, who were there and eager to bring in their communities and support with advice and, share some of their insights with us, as a team to help us kind of get things going. And so while they weren't necessarily doing the day-to-day work, Britt and I were managing that. They were always there as, kind of an advisory sort of board. But then as we got deeper, I think Christine's on this call probably and can attest to the need for more support. Christine reached out to me one day and said, I'm interested in transitioning to Web3. Like, is there anything that you need help with BFF? And yes, we need help now. And I think within a couple of days, she was working with us because we didn't, to be honest, we probably didn't plan very well with the event and the sort of the response that we would get from that. And there was a lot of customer support that was needed. There was a lot of excited people that we needed to hold the hands of. And I did have somebody managing our Discord. Her name was Alex. Got us all set up. So we had her. I had someone named Alana who was managing our Twitter account. But then, Christine was ready and eager to jump in and sort of just take on whatever we needed her to do. And that was a lot of things. And then from there, the team continued to build. I hired Renee as our community manager. She had reached out through a Twitter DM. She sent a video about why she liked BFF and how she could help, and said, yes, you're hired. We brought on Riley shortly after. Riley was one of our earliest mods who just jumped in willingly to help BFF, on her own accord. She was great. People loved her. And we thought, we need Riley on a more full-time basis. And then from there, we brought on a couple more. Today our team is probably about 8 full-time. But I'm still, pretty heavily involved in the day-to-day. I like to kind of get my hands dirty across different departments and do the kind of the nitty-gritty stuff. And so while, yes, I'm a founder and I'm I guess manager, I'm also kind of just a day-to-day employee too. And I think that's pretty key as your brand is getting off the ground, is just to be willing to do it all. You have to be there, of course, to strategize and look at the bigger picture, but you also have to, really jump in and grind to really know, what the team needs and what the business needs. So.
Thank you.
100%. Great question, Andrea. Thank you. Next up, I believe I said it was, and it's Lottie Die or Lady Die. I'm not sure. You should be able to.
Yes. I don't know if you could see me.
Yes, got you.
Okay, great. Hi, guys. Jamie, it's so cool to see you, quote unquote, in the flesh. Wow.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being here. So
You're a new
my
member,
question,
right? Welcome. I know you just recently joined, so it's nice to have you.
yeah, I literally just joined yesterday. Like I saw the tweet on the CPG Twitter, and I was like, oh, I gotta get in there like right now. Super happy to be here. My question for you is, what advice do you have for women who are deciding whether they should stay with the current Web3 startup that they're at and keep building there, as opposed to maybe pivoting to another and building there?
I think like listen to your intuition and your heart. You know, that's one. But then, you know, do your diligence on the team and the project and make sure it's someone that you want to commit to long term. Take part in the community, you know, spend some time getting to know other members of the community and see if it's something that makes sense for you. So don't make any hasty decisions, but also don't be afraid to like pull the trigger if it feels like the right thing for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up in the queue, and we've got about 20 minutes left. You're doing great. Thank you so much. We've got Gregarious. It's a stalwart of the Pop and BFF and the CPG community. You're up.
Hey, whoa, how's it going there? Hey, thank you. Well, I appreciate taking a second to answer some questions. And BFF's really like set a lot of new standards that are really great, I think, for the space in general. So I was kind of curious. One, I guess, two things, I guess. One, just like what do you see is next? And I know the newsletter, and obviously the team is growing. And I've had great engagement with everyone on the team. Are there any hints or idea, like things you can share about like what else is coming? And then I think the second part though is just as a fellow supporter, like what are more ways for us to get involved, right, or to help more? Because I feel like I work better if I'm given a task to do than sort of like trying to find something to do. And so like I almost like I wish there was a pick list of like, hey, can someone help with this? And like, because it'd be easier for me to volunteer time. So I'm just kind of curious of something like that.
Yeah, in the short term, we've started some fun, more kind of low key things. Like Riley started these communities in Discord where we bring people together with a creator, an artist who will lead a different activity, and that's been really fun. Just we also on a bigger long term scale, I can't say too much right now, but in 2 weeks I probably can share more. We have our roadmap that's public, and there's things on there like we have some plans for building out sort of an incubator style program, not too different from CPG, but different enough. And we'll share more on what that's going to look like soon. The education piece is always going to be at the heart of what we're doing. We're going to bring in our founding BFFs a lot more. We have experts across different industries who we don't think we're utilizing as much as we could. And so we're putting together some programming around that, which I'm really excited about. But in terms of, a more like year 2, 3, 4 strategy, we are going to be sharing publicly what that looks like, how the community can get engaged. And for now, it's, follow along in Discord and kind of definitely check out Riley's things on a weekly basis in our Twitter spaces.
I think I DM with Riley like once a day at this point.
And Twitter Spaces, we have a lot of conversations on there that I think you should definitely make sure you're a part of too. So stay tuned.
We have
for
all
sure.
your spaces backed up also. So
yeah, good. No, happy to have you in the community.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Awesome. I just want to point out, and thanks Gregarious for hopping on. Buzz, one of our lead moderators, is curled up under a blanket. He has a question in the queue. But next is BitFutures has a really great question. Are you able to ask it? If not, I can ask it for you. You should be able to talk, BitFutures. Littering end. Okay, so the question is, having gone through a big Web2 acquisition, what do you think that looks like for a Web3 company, and how do you imagine them being different? That's a spot
right.
on.
I see a lot more potential for collaboration and partnerships on a smaller scale, like an acquisition where, you know, a smaller community, like, I don't want to use examples, but like maybe there's a Web3 community that's, you know, doing similar work to BFF, and maybe they would see, you know, potential to acquire or come together and partner. And so not necessarily so much a big, we'll get there. I think we'll get there. I do think with like the bigger number kind of acquisitions, like they'll happen. I mean, we've seen it happen already, but I don't know. I think back to BFF, or excuse me, to Schmidt's too, when I was growing it, and how I literally never was thinking in those terms. I never thought I want my business to be acquired. I was just looking at acquiring new customers and keeping people happy. And then, you know, as the business matured and I saw that opportunity, like, you know, to grow the business further with that acquisition, then it made sense to me. And so I'm not, if you're talking about BFF specifically, I'm not necessarily thinking on those terms yet, but you know, for the industry as a whole, I think partnerships will probably be a lot more popular than full-on acquisitions, but we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. I have opinions here. I know that Chris constantly is kind of like thinking about and watching this in the space, but we'll cover that on a separate session. We don't want to give it all away. The next question up is going to be from, I believe it's Somi. So I'm hitting the allow to speak button. So please, what's your question? You're up.
Hi, can you see me?
Can't see you yet, but we can hear you.
Oh,
Boom.
Hi.
Hi.
This is like nearly midnight here, so I'm a little bit sleepy. But my question is, I have two questions. Oh, sorry. I have two questions. One question is, how exactly is POP an incubator? You know, I've been a member for a while now, and I haven't quite figured out. I feel like I haven't quite figured out how to best utilize the community. You know, I am building a platform that I think you probably are aware of, you know, and you know, we have reached out. It's an educational platform, and I think that for projects like you know, POP and BFF, it would be great, you know, for us to collaborate. And I see a lot of opportunities for working with different projects that can, you know, that we can collaborate with. And I was hoping that POP would be my kind of gateway into getting to know about this and kind of figure out how. I feel like I need to be in an accelerator type. It's probably beyond incubator. It's more like an accelerator. We've already raised our pre-seed. We have built the platform. It's there. It's working fine. You know, we've got 20,000 people already signed up. So just want to take it to the next level.
Yeah, nice. Congrats. I do know a bit about what you're building. It's awesome. You know, the incubator program is a program in itself, right? And Mikey, as a COO, you can probably, you know, get more detailed here. And then the day-to-day in POP, you know, showing up to the chats and you know, meeting other builders and coming together and networking that way is separate. And so I don't know if that was clear to you, Somi, that like the incubator program is an actual program that's very structured. There's an application process. So it's all going to be, it's being put together right now, and we'll be sharing a lot more very, very soon.
So it's not started yet. So there's going to be.
I might be able to give a little bit of insight and color here, if you don't mind. So Raf has been working furiously behind the scenes. We are about to release the questionnaire and an updated site that covers all of it. You have not missed anything. You're right at the edge of it. Okay. And so we have a lot more. And as Jamie had mentioned, it's a whole pillar within what we're doing here in CPG POP. That being said, I think finding the channels that resonate is another way that you can kind of get involved, and just combing through and seeing who's asking interesting questions is a way to just find and like reach out to people. I've made a lot of great friends just pinging people through Telegram and saying like, hey, tell me more about what you're doing, or I see you're good at X. Can you help me with Y? And so it's really going to be able for you to extract all of what you need out of it by putting in some of the time and work in building those relationships.
So in terms of relationship building, that's one thing, and yes, it's definitely helpful. But I'm also a member of Proof, so relationship building, I have got some amazing relationships. I feel like I need help from somebody like Jamie, like Chris, who have built to that level to take it to now. I just need some actual mentorship, and I'm willing to upgrade my POP to a CPG if that's what it takes. Because this is not like, for example, even being in Proof, you don't get that. Like I actually need some level of input of I've built the business to this space. I don't want to raise more money until I have a clear strategy of what I'm going to do next. Before I prepare for our next round. So
I think what you raise is like a great feature for us to build into CPG and POP, and to certainly, I mean, I know Chris is listening and Jamie is on it. It's not, I think, something that had been envisioned at the start, but there was probably a lot of things that we didn't envision at the start or that they didn't. So I think that's something for us to take back and figure out that. I would encourage you to tune into what we're going to release for the incubator, because it is very much aligned in that sense of getting that type of feedback through the program.
Does it make any difference if one is a member of the CPG or POP in this instance?
The incubator is
for
open to
POP holders.
Yeah. It's for the POP holders. Okay, cool. Okay, and then one last question is, when are you coming on my podcast, Jamie?
Let's do it.
I'm chasing that.
Yes, email me. I know you have an email. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I will do that. All right. Good night. Well, good afternoon for you guys. Good night for me. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Somi.
Cheers. I appreciate it.
All right. So Buzz had a question. Thank you, Somi. I'm trying to find it. Where'd it go? Okay. So it's another complimentary MyBFF. So MyBFF has been dropping great non-financial rewards for holders with the platform. Perk Shop, amazing. How do you see non-financial benefits fitting into the NFT ecosystem when there's a large focus on which project will give you the largest financial return? And the second part of the question is, do you see a world when NFT attention moves away from pure financial gains?
This is a conversation Chris and I have all the time, right? About like utility and the projects that are building, for that quick flip and, making, $20 here and there, or, more in a lot of cases, of course, but, and those that are, building for community and for the long term and for, more measurable results. And my opinion on whether it's going to change I think it probably has to. I think there's a lot of people who are completely in it to make money, and that's fair, but it's like gambling, right? I think there's different forms of gambling that people like to dabble in, and maybe this is just one piece that maybe people will get bored with, or maybe they, the opportunities will lessen. And so I don't think it's going to go away entirely, but I think the sustainable brands and projects and businesses in Web3 community building are the ones that have longer term plans and that are not afraid to admit that they're building a little more slowly, and that's not the right fit for everyone, and that's totally fair. And I think it's like I mentioned earlier, you have to be open to jumping around and figuring out what works for you, and just there's a lot of onus on the founders of projects to be transparent around that, right? Like, what are you getting when you're buying into a company? I think a lot of brands have learned that, right, over time, like what that means and how to communicate that the right way. And so it'll be interesting to see. I think, a year from now, things will probably look so different, and it's fascinating, and I'm excited to see. I'm not much of a trader, to be completely frank. Like, I'll buy an NFT and I never want to sell it. And that's a place that Chris and I differ as well. He's a collector, but also a trader, in certain regards. And so he'll pressure me, like, get another one so you can sell it. I'm like, I just want the one and I want to hold on to it, and it looks pretty in my wallet. And so we're all different.
Yeah. That's one piece, the wide spectrum of the way that people approach Web3. I think I lean more towards your kind of like, I just like it. It looks good. And I like what they stand for. and I don't have the time to do the combing, but I have tremendous respect for degens and for the folks that are like, I don't see degen as a derogatory thing. It's just like, it's what you do. It's, you enjoy it. And if you're good at it, awesome. I am not good at it, and I know I'm not good at it, so I don't try. I just like pick things that I think are pretty or cool that I like, and that's what I invest in.
But that's why there's different channels in pop too, for example, right? Like there are the NFT channels where people can like go crazy and go deep into that. And I think there's like so much to be learned there. So I appreciate that pop has all of it, right? There's like the long-term builder, chats, and then there's the ones that are more focused on the short term and making the profit and kind of getting value that way. So it's all very relevant.
Yeah. So we have 4 minutes left. We've actually, I think, covered, there's one other fella, Jen Furukawa, who's in the audience, who went back on mute, who had a question, but now isn't. If you have that question, you can come up and speak and ask it, and then we're going to be wrapping. This went really fast. I had a great time doing it, and there he is. All right, fire away.
That's mute. You're muted.
You're on mute. You got to unmute.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Jamie and Mikey. My name is Gen Furukawa. I'm in Austin, Texas. Real quick, you kind of you've alluded to partnerships a little bit, and then also when you were describing your early team, how they identified the different skill sets you needed and how people raised their hand and said, let me help out. But it seems like for Web3, partnerships is one of the main vehicles for growth. It's about building brand awareness, sharing communities, and then kind of building together. But I'd be curious if you can share to the extent of what a good pitch looks like, and where you've accepted a partnership for a community that might not be as big as yours or might not have some of the following or the value, but if so much is behind the scenes and a roadmap might be a little bit obfuscated, so you don't know what's coming, how does a brand or a project stand out to you where you're I want to work with them even though they're taking a shot in the dark on value they can add?
Yeah, that's a great question. BFF gets pitched constantly for partnerships, and it's really flattering, and it's fun and interesting. And there's we have certain criteria, of course, the values of the project are number one, right? What's your vision, what's your mission, who are you catering to? That needs to be aligned. But at the same time, can we push those boundaries a little bit, and can we look at partners that maybe are thinking about things a little bit differently, or who might give us access to a community who otherwise might not have known about BFF? Or I think about this goes back to my Web2 days too, retailers that I partnered with. I was building the brand of natural products, and so at face value, you'd think, okay, she's going to sell in Whole Foods, she's going to sell in these natural food co-ops or whatever. But I challenged myself to look at opportunities in retailers like Costco and Walmart, right? So I could reach other customers who wanted these products but didn't necessarily, know they didn't shop at those. They didn't shop at Whole Foods, right? And so that, how can we translate that thinking over to Web3 and to find partners that still align with our values and our bigger mission, but also expose us to more people? So there's no right answer. I don't think there's a special, recipe there, but I think it's just having an open mind constantly.
So is that kind of if you're going to evaluate it on a metric, it's basically audience size or exposure, maybe?
I wouldn't say necessarily audience size. I mean, big communities, probably catch our attention more quickly, but it's so much deeper than that. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Wow. Thanks, Ken. All right, folks. I think we have hit everything in the chats, and we are right up on that hour. Jamie, I'm going to kick it back to you again to do our close. Let's bring us home.
Yeah.
And just want to, first, before you do that, I just want to say thank you. Again, I know how busy you are, and I really appreciate the insights you have and just putting you on the spot on a couple of questions. But really, thank you so much for coming. We'll love to have you back, of course, whenever you can. And let's bring it home.
Yeah, thanks, Mikey. This is great. I'm such a fan of this community, of course. I've had to leave you on a word of wisdom or something I might say, just trust yourself, and don't be afraid to be curious, no matter what it is that you're building. And shifting gears is something that's very natural, but a lot of us are afraid of, or we think it means failure. So like that's not the case. I know this firsthand from many, many experiences. And so, as you are building and making connections here in Pop and across different communities, just keep that in mind, that it's okay to shift gears, right? You might make that one connection, or somebody says something in a way that resonates with you in a new way, and you think, you know what, I'm going to switch up my original thinking. I'm going to do things a little differently, and that's natural and it's normal and it's healthy. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.